14-time PGA Tour winner, 2-time major winner, loses to Nico Echavarria. We're going to talk about the Zozo Championship, Justin Thomas's close call. We've got Sheffty of the week, a weekend recap. Today is the Sports Equinox. We'll talk about that. There's some PGA Tour money debacle happening between some of the lower players from last year. And we've got Halloween Superlatives. Halloween coming up this Thursday will be my first Halloween with a kid that can semi-trick or treat. So that should be a treat rather than a trick, hopefully. And then we have Mulligan Monday, as we always do on Monday afternoons. Welcome into Big Drive Energy. Let's tee it up. Big Drive Energy here, Monday edition. It's another Monday, but it's another victory Monday for the boys. We got both of our football teams won this weekend. And for me, Monday feels like such a better day when your football team wins on Sunday. I don't know. I can't explain it. I mean, I feel like if you're listening to this pod, you have a football team, you get that feeling. But I woke up today excited to take on a Monday. And it's all because of football. It's sad, but it is what it is.
No, I completely agree. I mean, obviously you have somewhat of a different outlook on life in general when your sports teams are good. And there for a minute, I mean, the Nuggets still look like shit. They have looked like shit, and they'll turn it around. I know they will. But just those first few games were a little bit of a punch in the face, and then the Avs started off pretty poorly, and now they've turned it around. They look like a wagon, even with half their lineup out. And the Broncos, I mean, after we had the planned loss to the Chargers, which was baked into the schedule, everybody knew we were going to lose that game. But now we look like the offense is somewhat back. Obviously, the Panthers are not the best team in the league. They're actually the worst team in the league. But still, the fact that the best thing for me in general, just as a fan, was the quarterback play from Bo, just the accuracy with his throws down the field. It wasn't this dump off, just quarterback or running back screen, tight end screen. It was throws down the field. No matter who you're playing against, it's an NFL team. Like the fact that we threw the ball successfully down the field like that. And honestly, Bo Nix has turned into a pretty good fantasy pickup. I know your fantasy team sucks, so you might want to look into maybe picking Bo Nix up.
I started chirping Mitchell yesterday as Kyle Pitts was going off, and then it turned around and shoved it right up my pit because he was my only player that ended up doing well. And when I work the tailgates, and so I wasn't really paying that close of attention through the first wave of games, and I thought I was doing decent. And then I looked at your lineup, and all your dudes just went nuclear. So that was fun. I completely ripped this off of a viral tweet a couple weeks ago where there's a fantasy league that they all take a bet for the weekend and you put it in a parlay. And so I ripped that off, had a group of guys that we do it with in my other fantasy league. So we had a 10-team parlay, some games on Friday. We had some World Series picks. Then we had a soccer, English Premier League pick. And then we had a lot of NFL picks. And I was not paying attention to this as well because the guys that I'm in the league with, they're cool guys, not very experienced bettors. And now it's going to be even worse because we did get so close, but they feel like this should hit almost every week. And I'm like, you guys, this is not how it's going to be. This is going to be a fun thing. I had to say to them in the Instagram chat yesterday, guys, we're going to do this for probably 10 more years if this stays together, and we still may never get this close again or hit it again. So we hit 8 of our first 10 picks. The last 2 to win $33,000 between 10 of us was Javonte Williams anytime touchdown and Cortland Sutton anytime touchdown. Once again, we all pick differently without knowing. We just put it on the Google sheet and then we put the bet in. And ironically, we started on Thursday. Guy had Justin Jefferson anytime touchdown. He was drunk in Mexico. He lost. We lost the parlay, so it was cooked before the weekend even started. So he sent me another 10 to put it back in and picked a different thing because he was so pissed off. He's like, "No, we're not losing that way." And so it's become a kind of a fun thing. But once again, like my fantasy team, I wasn't really paying attention, and I'm driving home right before the game, and I'm like, "Oh my God, we're 8 of 10. We got 2 Broncos touchdowns that we need, and we're gonna win this like first week." And the cash out right off the hop was, when I looked, was like $4,500. And I told them, I said, does 450 really get you DH? I was like, it really doesn't for me. Like, this is 3,300 would be something to win, because they talked about cashing out, and then we did a group poll: should we cash, should we not? And I was like, guys, like, yeah, it would have been nice to have $450, but at the same time, this is a 10-team parlay. We're not going to cash this out every week if we get the 7, 8, 9 right. Like, the point of this is to ride it out. So it was a whole thing in the group chat. But of course, we didn't get the Javonte touchdown or the Cortland touchdown. And what sucks is we wanted just one of them. I did agree to cash out if we got one of them, because I thought, with the Broncos scoring 4 touchdowns in the game, kind of shocking their 2 best offensive weapons don't get either of them. But if Javonte would have gotten in the second quarter, I guarantee you that cash out goes up to like 20, 25, maybe between 15 and 20. With a whole half left, they would have tried to cut their losses, maybe 15, and we would have definitely taken that. So fun to do that every single week. I'm looking forward to that, just because it's a crapshoot. But like, so many things have to go right for that. Like, randomly, the Browns winning. Shout out to BC Brandon, my boy. He was like adamant about the Browns winning at plus 320. We all called him stupid. I did not, because I actually liked it. But a lot of the group was like, "You're dumb. That's going to lose us our parlay, blah, blah, blah." And then like Mark Andrews anytime touchdown hit, Mixon, all this stuff. So it was just it was a fun little exciting afternoon for us to watch that, but didn't turn out to be the excitement of actually hitting a 10-team parlay. But it's something fun to kind of keep track of each week along with the fantasy teams.
Well, yeah, you gave me a couple of things to talk about from there. First of all, the fact that you're making a Google sheet to put your bets on is slightly questionable. That means basically everyone in this league is kind of a nerd, because if you need to put your fucking bets on a Google sheet and send them out to each other, then that you're thinking a little too much about it. Second of all, I would have definitely cashed that out, because you're basically doing the books a favor by letting it ride, especially with Javonte and Cortland. Obviously, we were playing the Panthers, but at the same time, the Broncos don't really score that many points, relatively speaking. So I definitely would have cashed that out, because my thought from there is, you cash out $4,000. Okay, next week you each take 100. You put $1,000 parlay, and I guess it'd be too tough with 10 people to all agree on something. But if you can put $1,000 parlay on, say, 3 or 4 players, that's, plus 800 or 1,000, and turn 1,000 into 10,000. That's kind of how you gain momentum. The big books want to keep you down. They want you to fucking ride that puppy out and lose your $100 instead of taking $4,500 from them. But also, I had a touchdown parlay yesterday as well. That was one leg away from hitting. It was Christian Watson in the touchdown parlay. So I had 7 of 8 hit, and it would have paid me $25,000. But another big whiff on our part that kind of brings us back to the Broncos is, I wasn't aware that it was National Tight End Day yesterday, because I knew it immediately after the early game started. I looked at my girlfriend and said, we should have fucking done a tight end parlay. But regardless, I could take some solace in knowing that I wouldn't have put Adam Troutman in there. Like, there would have been no chance of us adding any Broncos tight ends. They were statistically the worst tight ends in the league, the least targeted, the least receptions, whatever. But did you see one of the big books, or I forget what it was, something on Twitter. It was $10 to win 150,000, and it was like Kyle Pitts, Cade Otton, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, basically every big name. Sam Laporta was in there. Who else am I missing? There was, if you would have just taken every like big name tight end, Kate Otton's not a big name, but with no Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, you knew he was going to get targets. Kyle Pitts, though, kind of came out of nowhere. I actually saw another parlay where a guy had $50. It was Kate Otten and Kyle Pitts, two plus touchdowns each. It just the two legs. It was like 50 to win like 15 grand, and that hit. So just shit like that. Hindsight's 2020, but
yeah, my wife told me it was National Tight End Day early in the week, and it didn't resonate with me when I was placing these bets or even placing any bets yesterday, because it was clear that whether by accident or by coincidence, or it was actually a thing from the teams, every tight end seemed to be scoring. And I don't know if they just highlighted it. It just felt like they scored more touchdowns, but it felt like every team's tight end got a look at or they were trying to force it to them to get a touchdown. That first one you were talking about with Otten and all them, like, what did it hit clearly?
Yeah, it hit.
I thought you were going to say it didn't. I thought there was a bad ending to that story. So.
No, the guy made like 150 grand off $10. I think it was a 10-leg tight ends only parlay. So definite whiff on our part, not being aware. But also, I will say that I would have added Brock Bowers and Trey McBride, because those are two of my guys that I've been pretty high on. I actually, in one of my leagues, I play one of them in the flex and one of them at tight end, kind of because my lineup sucks a little bit. Not a whole lot of depth at the skill positions. So I play one of them in the flex, and neither of them scored yesterday, but I think McBride had like 12 catches for like 110 or 120, and Brock Bowers is Gardner Minshew's favorite target. He's his security blanket. So I figured one of those two would score, but it is a crapshoot because you're kind of picking big names, like obviously Kelsey and Kittle, all those guys, Pitts, but then you got to add McBride in. McBride, I think, is the TE1 receiving yards wise so far this year. And then Brock Bowers is right, or not TE1. I'm sorry. I think Bowers is number 1 in yards, and I think McBride is number 3 or 4 in yards, and neither of them really have scored much. So it's just a total crapshoot. But I am getting responsibly addicted to touchdown parlays. Like, it is one of those where you get those early legs that hit, and you're like, holy shit, this thing has a chance. And then I was waiting on Christian Watson, and especially after Jordan Love went out yesterday, I was like, there's no chance Christian Watson scores. So that was another killer. But, there's always next week.
There is always next week. Well, until there isn't, but we've got a while. It's only not even the end of October yet. And for the record, real quick, doing a Google sheet, we're not nerds. It's just easier for everybody to go in there and put their bet in so I can see them as I'm placing them. Because when we started doing it, they were just all messaging me on this Instagram chat that we have as a group, and I was trying to keep track of who picked what and try to get it all out there. Putting a 10-team parlay together with a bunch of different leagues is not the easiest thing when you're trying to click all the different things and add them to the bet slip. So for the record, Google Sheet is the way to go. I know you're like an old man when it comes to technology, but one day we'll get you there.
Do you have your wife send you a Google Sheet with the grocery list on it? Like, everything you do is a Google Sheet?
Yeah, because it's
where do you draw the line?
You can keep it everywhere.
Do you know what's wild is you keep a text message on your phone as well. That's there all the time.
Yeah, I guess so. But Google Sheet's easy. I can just go through all 10, boom, bada boom, bada bang. All right, let's get to our Sheffy of the week. So no notable arrests this week, unfortunately. So our Sheffy of the week is going to go to a dominating performance in the NFL. Didn't even realize this guy was having that good of a day, because the last time I checked, like I said, I was a little out of pocket. Last time I checked, it was like 10-7 Bengals. So I was like, oh, this guy's not having that good of a day. He's your fantasy quarterback. Shout out to Jalen Hurts getting our Sheffy of the week this week. 236 yards through the air and a touchdown on 80% completion percentage. And where he really burrowed it deep in me is 10 carries for 37 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. The most unstoppable play. I don't know. You probably watched the Eagles game because of your girl, but Were they all 3 tush pushes, or did he actually run one in like a man?
No, he ran in like an 8-yarder. That was like a QB option, and that was a good run. And then I think he did get pushed a time or two, but either way, the dude is a wagon. And it is funny because I feel like there's definitely some sort of bias that you and I both have. I'm not sure if we've talked about it. I think we have on the pod. But the 49ers versus the Eagles, because your wife is a 49ers fan. My girlfriend is an Eagles fan. So you have this blind bias towards the 49ers where, and maybe not even a bias to the 49ers, like a bias away from the Eagles, where you think they suck, like they're all terrible. You think Jalen Hurts sucks. And I kind of have a similar type of feeling with like Brock Purdy and all that shit. So it is very hard when let's just talk about our pick 'em real quick. Because you want to take the Niners every single week, and they actually would have covered this week, so that would have been nice. But you want to take the Niners every week, like you just think they're going to roll, and they have what are they 3-4 now, or 4-5, or
4-4.
4-4? Okay, so statistically speaking, and they're favored in every single game they play in. So not great from a pick'em standpoint. Eagles are actually 5-2 right now. Everybody's been down on them huge because the whole Nick Sirianni situation, a couple of bad losses. But the Eagles look pretty fucking good right now. If they can run the ball with Saquon the way they have these last few weeks, although how much does it suck having Saquon on your fantasy team? Or like I've added him into almost all of my touchdown parlays, and every time they get on the goal line, it's just Jalen Hurts. Like I would be so freaking annoyed. He's a touchdown vulture.
Well, that's what Bo did to us, with our Javante parlay. Like Bo has that little Drew Brees jump over the line, reach it out, good to go, touchdown. And yes, I'm happy, but I would have preferred Javante to get in there on that 2nd and goal where he got stopped at like the inch line.
Okay, real quick. Speaking of which, I think we need to have a quick discussion about running up the score in professional sports and just see what we think about that. Because JC Horn had a little issue with Sean Payton yesterday. It was pretty nationally covered across all networks that they kind of got into something verbal after the game. And I'm just curious where you stand, because we definitely the Broncos could have ran the ball more down the stretch, but obviously we only won by 2 touchdowns. It wasn't like look at the Lions. Like if you want to look at somebody running up the score, look what the Lions do every week to their fucking sorry opponents. But the Broncos are up by 3 scores throwing the football. Somebody takes exception with that. How do you feel about it? Because in all honesty, I'd like to see the running game get going, but the confidence that I think Bo is going to carry from yesterday, making the throws that he made, that he has yet to make at this level. Like I think yesterday was really his first day where he was calm in the pocket. He wasn't getting those rookie feet just pitter pattering, like starting to duck down. And he really isn't like a ducker type of dude like Russell Wilson was, but he looked confident. He stepped up. He made throws down the field. And I think that was huge for his growth as a quarterback. But I'll give you the floor here and you tell me what you think.
Yeah, running up the score is never a thing that should be policed in professional sports. Even college sports most of the time, but there is some instances where you have like a basketball team, and I think I'm not saying this is just girls, but there's a girls game that was like 3 to 120. At some point, there's just a difference.
I think that was in like a high school like 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, high school or college, whatever. In the professional level, it's never a thing. I don't care what the score is. If you can't stop them, you're all getting paid to play. Now you're getting paid to play in college too. But there is some colleges where, those first couple weeks of like college football season, or even the first couple games of real games of college basketball, there's a clear talent level and team level discrepancy where it's kind of rude to just like keep burying them. That does nothing for either team. But in college football, sometimes even the team gets paid to get buried. Like when CSU went to Alabama, and it wasn't even that bad, but there's 70-3, 70-7. But
the players don't get paid, but the team gets paid. The school gets paid to send their soldiers down there to fucking get waxed by 60.
Yeah, exactly. So in professional sports, running up the score should never be something that's talked about. End of the game is what it is. I loved the fake punt. I actually thought he had Will Lutz, or the fake field goal. I thought he had Will Lutz open in the flat, but he ended up pitching it
Clear
to.
missed opportunity there.
Yeah, exactly. But you also don't want to get your kicker blown up from something like that. And, but yeah, and running up the score, no, I have a problem. I would have, if I was Sean Payton, I would have taken a timeout and thrown a go ball to Sutton right at JC Horn, a one-on-one ball at the end of that, if I heard anything like that. But he needed out and finished it.
I think it is one of the most like laughable things I've ever heard in professional sports. And there is an element, like you said, like in hockey, if the goalie's pulled and you're down 6 shots and you're still shooting, or you're up 6 goals and you're still firing at an empty net, at that point, then somebody's probably going to come fight you. But you're never going to go over to the other coach and complain that they're running up the score. That is the most Bush League softest shit in professional sports I've ever heard. And that's how you know you're down bad, is when you don't have a problem with the other players, you have a problem with the other coach that's calling the plays. I can't even imagine how the Panthers feel at this point. They're literally up shit's creek without a paddle. But just hilarious to me that somebody's heard about getting the score ran up on them when they're making $10 to $15 million a year. Like, how about you just go ahead and try harder? Like, don't let it happen. So
yeah, how about you stop them? Next thing we got on the docket here, happy Sports Equinox Day, the only guaranteed one we're getting to those that celebrate. We've got World Series Game 3 tonight in New York. Yankees a slight favorite. We've got Monday Night Football, Russie Wilson and the Steelers. And I know the schedule comes out early, and we're starting to get to flex zone here in a couple of weeks. But good God, every time I turn on a fucking primetime game, it's the Jets, the Cowboys, or the Giants. And I'm sick of watching all of them. They all stink. Nobody cares. And I get it. That's the most eyeballs, and I get what they're doing. And the Giants were actually decent a couple of years ago, whatever. But I'm so sick of seeing the same shit teams. I wish they would just start flexing the whole season or past week 6. But at the same time, on the other side of that coin, I'm annoyed what my job is when I don't know when the game is and what time it is. So switching that stuff up is kind of annoying to planners and people that, like to go do things for the game or go to the game. It can change up schedules, but I'm so sick of seeing the New York Giants and the Pittsburgh Steelers Sunday night, parlay that into a Monday night. But Monday Night Football, we've got a bunch of hockey games out there. We've got a bunch of NBA games. And this is the only guaranteed day of the year right now because the World Series could be over in a couple of days. Hopefully the Yankees come back and make it, I want a Game 7 just for the theater of it, which would be next weekend. So next Sunday, we could get some NFL, NBA, NHL, and some MLB baseball. But happy Sports Equinox Day to those that celebrate. Now is the time of you got something about that?
Yeah. Let me let's have a 2-second talk about. I was listening to Altitude earlier today. I was listening to Vic and Moj. It's like our favorite wake up morning radio show. You can listen to it anywhere on their app. Shout out, because I'm in New Jersey. I'm still listening to Altitude every morning. But they were talking about, Brett Kane brought up that he thought it was super cool when Freddie Freeman hit the walk-off grand slam, just the theater of it, everybody going crazy. And Vic said he appreciated it too as a sports fan. And Mosier said he completely hated it because he was, admitting anything that the Dodgers do is cool is kind of against what you stand for as a sports fan. And I kind of disagreed with Mosier, but then he goes, oh yeah, the next time the Raiders win the Super Bowl, are you going to be like, you know what? That was really cool. Like, they deserve that. No, we're still going to hate the Raiders. So I still hate the Dodgers. The Freddie Freeman moment was cool, but then Mosier goes, he shouldn't even be on the Dodgers. He should still be with the Braves, which I also agree with. So what did you think it was cool, or obviously we don't like either of these franchises anyway. So
yeah, I mean, having Yankees money line made it not cool, and overall, like, I do get where Mosier's coming from with the Dodgers scenario and just not liking the Dodgers. I feel like my hate in this series specifically has gone way down for the Yankees because I hate the Dodgers so much that I'm rooting for the Yankees. Like, you have to root for somebody. Both teams can't lose. This isn't you know, movie where the stadium blows up. I forget what that's called, where Bane blows the stadium up. Like, that's not a realistic outcome of this scenario. So I've been rooting for the Yankees, and Freeman, just the whole postseason baseball, the game was incredible. All the little plays that matter so much in the moment, or they don't seem to matter in the moment. Then you look back on the game, you're like, oh, if he does this, this changes this. Made for great. It was a great game one. It was incredible. I mean, Freeman, you know, you can question Aaron Boone's decision going to Nestor Cortez when he hadn't pitched in like a month, but then he gets Ohtani out, and then the weird rule where the guy falls into the stands, and then the guys have to go from first and second to second and third, and then you have the open base, so they walk bets. Just like the whole baseballism of it, I think made it cool. And then obviously a walk-off grand slam, which hasn't happened in almost 700 World Series games ever. So I thought it was great. I thought it was a great game. Just if you're going to watch a World Series that of two teams you could care not very much about, that's as good as it could get.
Yeah, I mean, this comes down to probably the two most disliked franchises, respectively, for the West and the East to meet in the World Series. So it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of thing. So I get that you're rooting for the Yankees, but I also know that your wife's family is Yankees fans. So I have to wonder if you're just backdooring your way into that fandom and just saying that, you know, you're just kind of hopping on that bandwagon. Like, what's the story there?
No, it's just truly my hate for the Dodgers. I don't want them to win a World Series. And like the Yankees have 26. That's how many years the Rockies have played baseball. Like, what is it, a 27? You know, the Dodgers, though, I would just like to see them not win it, because they only have like the Mickey Mouse one recently in 2020 with
like the Lakers.
Season. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of want that trend to continue. All right, let's move on. This is the part of the podcast where we state that it is a golf podcast, and we start talking about golf. We made it about 27 minutes, so that's not too bad. The Zozo Championship this past weekend, great finish to it. Nico Echavarria with his second PGA Tour win, and took down some foes, some guys that have been good in the past and not been good the last year or so. And Justin Thomas and Rickie Fowler also up there on the leaderboard. Max Greyserman's playing some good golf, and did play some good golf towards the end of the 2024 PGA Tour season. So did you watch much of this from Japan? What did you think? Near Narashino Country Club, kind of a cool backdrop for sure. Definitely like being in like where Japan just seems like a place, like it seems like it's not from the same earth that we're on. I've never been there clearly, but it just feels like a different world.
Yeah, 100%. And it makes it tough to watch when the time change is just completely different. But I did watch some clips here and there. I was tapped in to see who was going to pull it out, because, I mean, you've got Rickie Fowler, you've got Justin Thomas, a couple other bigger names, Eric Cole, Jonathan Vegas was up there, you know, like it's just such
Kitayama
a weird.
was in the top 5.
Yeah, Kitayama's a bigger name. Like you said, Greyserman's also up there as well. But it's the whole dynamic of, and we'll get to the PGA Tour blunders, but this is somehow a limited field event in the fall season in Japan. Like I just don't necessarily get who they're limiting it to, because I know there is certain level. There's so many different tiers of PGA Tour status. It's like a fucking Planet Fitness membership. You've got 8 different levels to this thing, but the fact that Justin Thomas is still competing and stuff like this is just kind of surprising. I mean, in all honesty, I took away from this that Justin Thomas is just a grinder, because Jordan Spieth has played just as bad at golf recently, and he could easily be doing the same shit. And Justin Thomas just had a kid. So maybe that's why he's in Japan. Maybe he's like, you know what? I'm going to take a week. I'm going to get some sleep. I think whenever they go to Japan, they just eat phenomenal food. Looks like the cuisine is just phenomenal, on fire over there. Like they're eating fucking hot pots. They're eating all the fresh sushi. They're eating the Kobe beef. Who wouldn't want to go play in Japan other than the massive time change? Because like you said, the country club looked phenomenal as well. So maybe that is why Justin Thomas left, so he could get away from the newborn. But Do you recall this? Am I missing something? I know his wife was pregnant. Do you want to
No,
look up and confirm that
I
Justin Thomas
think
just had a child?
I think he's about to. I think his
Oh,
wife is still pregnant. Like I think this was kind of his last hurrah before being a dad as a golf tournament. So you have to factor in going forward, is Justin Thomas going to get the dad boost on the golf course?
I definitely think he could, but this arises another question. Would you feel more guilty leaving your pregnant wife? Obviously, she could pop at any second. You're going halfway around the world. You may not even make it back if she goes into labor. You may not be able to physically get there in time. Or do you feel worse if you're leaving with a newborn?
I think it's a choice you make at the beginning. I think the choice is scarier to leave when the baby hasn't come yet, especially if it's your first kid and if you have the chance to not be there for it, not the chance, but like you have the scaries of not
If
being
you
there
have the
for it.
opportunity to not be there,
No, like not like our Uber driver in New Orleans who was like, you can just go to Texas and have the kids with your parents. I don't need to be there for that. That's exact quote from him. Wild. But no, I think it's scarier to make the decision when you don't have the kid yet. Once you have a newborn, your family's probably in town, her family's probably in town or can help out with it. And you're going over to do your job and make more millions of dollars. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but I think it's scarier leaving before the kid's actually born and then having the chance that would happen while you're on the golf course or while you're working. And they overplayed the hell out of that all year with Scotty Scheffler and his wife and Meredith being pregnant and not even close to having a kid and talking about the Masters and would you leave and stuff like that. Justin Thomas didn't get the same pub at the Zozo, but I think it is scarier once you get to the point where you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to miss my kid's birth, especially if it's the first one. That's a little scary.
yeah, definitely the first one you got to be there for. After that, it's a toss up, depending on how much money you're going to make that week. I also would say that the everybody kind of overblows. Obviously, you want to be there as a dad, a significant other, but these guys have so much money. Like to say that their wife is not some middle class mom floundering by herself for weeks on end. Like they've got a whole team of people that are there with them as well. So I'm not saying it makes it easier, but there's definitely more helping hands, I would assume. I don't think Justin Thomas is just leaving and his wife all of a sudden is just fucking hanging out at home by herself and then her water breaks. Like they've got people. These PGA Tour guys are pretty famous. They're not NFL guys, but they're famous enough and they have enough money to where they're going to be just fine either way. So I think that also gets overplayed a little bit. I know Max Homa's wife came out and said that she does all the traveling with their son and all this, but realistically, I mean, how many? And I guess I can't judge, but all I know is that Russell Wilson didn't him and Sierra have like 3 nannies for like 2 kids at fucking Broncos training camp. Like I know they're not making 60 mil a year, but at the same time, they've got bread.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where I saw an Instagram post. There was all the Yankees wives flew out to LA, I think, or vice versa. All the LA wives flew out to, well, they didn't fly out to New York yet. They're there today. So it had to be the Yankees wives that flew to LA. And somebody quote tweeted the picture and was like, they were like, I'm glad they all could get off work at the same time or be able to get off work to make this. It was like
Oh fuck that!
hilarious.
Yeah, no, that is very good. Hopefully, they are all working remote that day, so they could take their private jet out to just the general privilege that professional athletes have. Does it ever just like you think about it and it just makes you sad that you're not one?
Yeah, every day. Every day I wish I would have shot less 84s in high school and more 74s or 64s.
Well, I shot plenty of 74s. Let me tell you, it's fucking it hasn't gotten me much further. So, if anybody's out there is playing high school golf, it doesn't matter if you shoot 104 or fucking 74. If you're not shooting 64 in high school, and either way, you're gonna end up just like the two of us. So you can take solace in that. But just thinking about like dudes that are making 20, $30 million in a year, you're just like, how do you even wrap your head around that? And so I think we could segue this real quick into the PGA Tour tax debacle if you want to go over that quick.
Yeah, let's do that. So this is from our guy, A Case of the Golf, Monday Q Info. Last December, players who had lost their PGA Tour status received a call from a tour rep just days before Christmas. The call informed them that they owed the tour tens of thousands of dollars. So this is garnish wages, the $500K advance, and taxes. And it's a pretty good story, obviously a great story, anything that Monday Q Info does. But one player reportedly responded to it, well, Merry fucking Christmas. And it's apparently a new incentive for all fully exempt PGA Tour players starting the 2023 season. They receive a $500,000 guarantee from the tour, and the 2022 Korn Ferry Tour graduates who are going to the PGA Tour receive the money up front as advanced against future earnings and could earn prize money from tournaments once they surpassed that $500K in earnings. But if they didn't reach $500,000 in earnings, they'd have to pay that difference back. They did not account for the state taxes each player would owe or provide any tax or financial guidance about the program. Players did not reach the $500,000 in earnings received no communication about the tour paying state taxes on their behalf until this phone call before Christmas. What a mess. I know employers, like I've only had a couple of employers and they haven't done something of this magnitude. I've never had a job that made money of this magnitude, so that's kind of a moot point. But can you imagine getting that call and being like, I mean, $500,000 hitting your bank account is pretty cool, but it's almost like the kids that go to college and then they have these massive debt that they're going to have to pay back. You know, there's just so many hidden things down the line that when you're signing up for something, you're like, I'm not, what am I going to not play on the PGA, not take this $500,000 to start my career?
Yeah, no, there was actually a dude, Monday Q Info in the article said that he texted with a few PGA Tour players, and one guy said that they wouldn't let him turn it down, but he wanted to turn it down because he wanted to see the checks like hit his account when he played well, like an incentive thing where, and that is funny because then you look at Live and you wonder whether those guys have the drive to play golf or not when they get paid completely up front and sign these massive contract, these bonuses and, basically appearance fee money at that point. But one of the guys definitely said that he didn't want to take it up front because he wanted to have the satisfaction of the money hitting his bank account every week. But I talked to my girlfriend because she's an accountant. This is somewhat of her expertise. And I'm like, what could they have done? And it sounds like the tour just whiffed on not telling them that they were going to be paying the federal taxes. But it is a little bit of the, the PGA Tour has got to be a little more transparent up front and being like, hey, so did you see what they revised it to this year? Because it sounds like they're moving in the right direction. They're, instead of handing them 500, they're going to give them 400. And then at the end of the year, if they, whatever they owe in taxes on the quote unquote 500, they are going to take the chunk out and then send the player the rest of the 100,000. So say they owe 60 in taxes, the PGA Tour pays the 60, sends the player the 40.
Yep, exactly. So that's at least a little better way of doing it. But it feels like a lot of the things the PGA Tour did in that whole live scramble where we didn't really know what was going on is just make all these new decisions to try to make the PGA Tour look better and look like the reason to not make the jump to the live golf tour, which, real quick side note, Cam Smith said is the best decision of his entire life because of all the time he gets to spend in Australia, the money, everything, etc. But yeah, so it sounds like they kind of just rolled out a few of these policies and things to basically put lipstick on a pig. A pig, a very big piggy bank is this pig. But either way, they tried to make something look better than it was in order to get a few players to maybe stay, and then kind of turned it into, they effed the D on that one kind of towards the end. And now sounds like it's a better scenario that they're getting the 400K and then can pay their taxes. But even that, like that amount of money for a mid to lower level tour player, that might be worth like moving to Texas for, or moving to Florida for. I don't know all the state income laws, but like that would be like, hey, I'm not going to live in California if this is how I'm getting paid, because maybe that check at the end of the year will be more.
Well, yeah. So, but the difference is the crazy thing is so the $500,000 is technically not earned, like they haven't earned it yet. It's basically an advance or a draw, I guess you could call it, a salary of some sort. So with the PGA Tour being based out of Florida, which is a no income tax state, all these players then assumed that they we're not going to have to pay any state tax on that first 500 grand because they technically were not, like, say you go play a tournament in California and make 150 grand. You're not, I guess you're working in the state of California, but you've already been paid that $500,000. So it's like they hand you your salary for the year up front. And then depending on where you succeed in, can mean you're taxed differently, like because of the different state income tax levels. So it just sounded like a giant cluster. And obviously, if these PGA Tour guys don't have like high level accounting, then that's kind of on them anyways. If you're planning on making millions of dollars, kind of making a financial plan would probably be a good idea. But at the same time, the PGA Tour giving them no heads up on any of the state tax laws, anything like that. Almost, I don't know if handing money to somebody is ever a problem, but it sounds like these dudes had about as big of a problem as you could have with somebody just being like, here's 500 grand. They're like, well, cool, but what the fuck does this mean now? And they found out that, you're probably going to owe about 15 to 20 to 30 to between federal and state, however much these, who knows, some guys probably had to cut a check. And did you see that they were garnishing the Corn Ferry Tour wages? Like, so you just lose your PGA Tour card. You've got, say, $50,000 of the money left from the 500. You didn't even make 500K on tour. So you're already kind of having a shitty time. You got to go back to the Corn Ferry Tour. And they're like, well, if you owe us 75K, if you can't pay us right now, we'll just garnish it out of your Corn Ferry Tour wages, which is the payouts are like a 10% of a PGA Tour payout. So you've got to fucking basically win a Corn Ferry Tour event to just pay off the tax debt that you owe the PGA Tour. Like, I could see how this would leave a pretty bad taste in a lot of the players' mouths, because I think they said there was a dozen players that owed that went back to the Corn Ferry Tour that owed the PGA Tour money and had their wages garnished, wages garnished by the PGA Tour in order to pay them back. So yeah, I would be not stoked about that one bit.
Yeah, no, just a complete debacle all the way around, especially for, this is a bigger deal. Like, it's already a mess, but then when you're making the players that necessarily aren't making that much money, they're not having $3-4 million seasons. It's a way bigger deal to them. They're like, oh, well, now I maybe can't go play in this tournament because I don't have the money anymore. Now I'm paying it back in taxes that I didn't realize I had. So just an overall debacle. Moving on to, we'll talk about real quick about the Genesis Championship. Ben On gets a dub, driver off the deck to a couple feet on one of the par fives. He had a couple funny tweets about that, and just him hitting driver off the deck is it's a polarizing topic in the game of golf. Everybody thinks they can do it until you actually try to do it. So pretty incredible stuff from Ben On. Tom Kim got a little heated. The tank engine overheated a little bit and ended up breaking a locker. And there was a post from another golf account on that on Instagram, and with the whole quote and what was said. And then Trent, you guys can all figure out who Trent is. He commented and was like, leave it to the PGA Tour or someone to make it feel like Tom Kim killed somebody. Like, that's how much they blew it up. So do you think, obviously that's an incident. Those things probably happen more than we know, that just this got actually released. But do you think it makes it a little bit worse that it's Tom Kim versus like a guy that maybe has a temper, or that's not like loved by everyone?
Well, what I don't think a lot of people realize is the reason that it was a big deal is because this was played in Korea, and they are so hardcore. Like, it's basically like you're time traveling back to the 1700s, where it's this proper etiquette. Like, apparently, in case of the Mondays, shout out again. We talk about him all the time, but there was a player years ago that got kicked off. He was playing a tournament in Korea. I think it was for the Japan's tour or something like that. And he flipped off somebody in the crowd, and he got a lifetime ban from the tour for just flipping somebody off that was in the crowd. So I think Tom Kim, especially being from Korea, he's worried that his country is not going to welcome him back. And that's why in the apology that he said, I will take any disciplinary actions that have been passed on to me. But it's basically just because Korea is just so fucking hardcore with all their rules. Like you can't even break a locker door. Like Rory McIlroy's done that every other week this year because he keeps fucking losing. So if he went over there, he would never be allowed back. That's for sure. It's just it's pretty wild that they're playing in Korea. And then you have Ben On and Tom Kim going at it at the very end. But then obviously, like you said, Tom Kim got a little overheated, fucking took it out on a locker room door, and now he may never be able to play professional golf in his home country again.
I guess now it makes a little bit more sense, you saying, like, phrasing it that way. I mean, there's dudes out there playing so they don't have to do fucking military service. Like, that's how hard this shit is. And Tom Kim's like, oh, no, like, I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. Like, they're hard.
Yeah, they probably saw him break the locker room door. They're like, he's ready for the service. Like, he's got that fucking fight in him now. Let's get that mandatory 3 years. I think it's 3 years, but obviously that's a joke. We don't want to see that happen because it could honestly affect Tom Kim's career like quite a bit. We've seen it before. I don't know if you remember the name Sangmoon Bae. Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still kind of playing on the PGA Tour now. Very like low level. He's basically exempt. I think he had like there's an exemption where if you leave for military service or something like that, you get maybe a handful of events for like the next 3 years or some shit. So he's still taking advantage of that. But he was playing phenomenal golf, I want to say like 7 or 8 years ago, starting to compete on the PGA Tour, starting to make a name for himself, had to go do his mandatory military service, and his golf game has never been the same since. So hopefully Tom Kim can either win, what is that event? The Euro, not the Euro Cup, remember what we talked about where if they win that event, they're exempt from the military service. It was like the China Games or the the Asia Games. I think it was Asia Games. You seem a little perplexed as to what I'm talking about right now.
Yeah.
I think it's like the Olympics for Asia.
I thought it was like a normal PGA Tour event type of thing where if he won that, but maybe it's not. Like I knew if he won the actual Olympics, he would have been fine.
It's only like worldwide events. So the Olympics is really the only one worldwide golf event, but then also I think it was it's like the Asian Games, and it's the Olympics, but just for Asian countries. So okay. I could be just completely butchering this entire thing. But fingers crossed for Tom Kim that he can still play golf in Korea and then does not have to go serve that mandatory military time, because that would be ass for him.
Yeah, Tom Kim's too nice to do that. We're going to hop into, it is Halloween week, and we've got some spooky superlatives for Halloween coming up this Thursday. I went and bought all my candy today. I guess my house is kind of a hotbed. I was gone for Halloween last year, but there's a lot of kids coming up to the door. I did some leaf blowing today in my front yard. That was a task that I had to stop halfway through because I was like, oh, I got to get to work. This is too many bags out there. But we have some Halloween superlatives for you. We're going to start out. I'll start out with my first one. So we have who's going to turn into a pumpkin in 2025. We've got the best costume. And then we've got the ghost who will reappear in 2025. That's for like a player that maybe didn't have a great 24 that we see reappearing into the life of the living in 2025 on the PGA Tour. My who's going to turn into a pumpkin, we might have the same guy, but Wyndham Clark, he already kind of turned it down this year. He didn't have any, or he had one win, only 8 top 10s. I know, but like I feel like there's different levels of turning into a pumpkin. There's guys that are the 100 to 125 on the PGA Tour at the end of this year that won't be on the PGA Tour ever again. Like that's serious pumpkins. We're talking kind of mid pumpkins here, like the ones you get at a King Super is not a full pumpkin patch. But like, I don't think next year we're going to see Wyndham Clark guaranteed on the top 4 on the Ryder Cup team, guaranteed to go. I know the Olympics are, but I don't think he's going to be at that level next year in 2025.
I think that's pretty fair. I definitely think this makes it challenging because Wyndham already was kind of turning into a pumpkin. So now he may just be a rotten pumpkin after this year because he definitely was not well liked by a lot of people. And then he made some comments and then he played some bad golf. So I could definitely, I like your selection. I could definitely see that. I'm going to say Billy Horschel's going to turn into a pumpkin. He already is kind of a pumpkin. I didn't really like him, and then I started to like him, and he's been playing some pretty decent golf, but he is basically the biggest fangirl for the PGA Tour and willing to die on the hill of the PGA Tour is well run. They take care of their people, this and that. So I could see Billy Horschel kind of going down the heel. It almost feels like he's taken Rory McIlroy's place for the defender of the PGA Tour. So we'll see where that goes next year.
All right. My best costume, I'm going to just give it to anything Victor Hovland's wearing. And we kind of went with a spoof on that because he's wearing some all right gear for the, what is it, Jay Lindbergh, but it's just so not fitting to him. And you feel like every time he puts on one of the outfits, it's obviously very talked about, but then it just doesn't fit him or who he is at all. And you almost feel like why am I wearing this fucking, I should have wore the vest. Like, why am I wearing this fucking shirt right now? That's what he feels like. So that's why I'm giving him the best costume, just because he doesn't fit what he wears. He should, I bet if he dressed himself, he looks like almost like a Patrick Cantlay type of scenario. A lot of grays, maybe Adam Scott, a lot of grays, a lot of blacks. But instead they got him out here in this like floral and these bright colors. And you can just tell, I think he hates it.
Oh, dude, 100%. Every time he meets with his Jay Lindbergh rep, he's just like one eye open, like, holy shit,
Like,
show me what I'm wearing this week. Because I'm sure they're paying him handsomely. So you just take a look in your bank account and be like, yeah, I would dress up as a fucking clown and be on TV if my bank account looked like Victor Hovland. So I have no problem with it. But yes, you can tell Hovland, his favorite music is death metal. So I don't think he's really that happy-go-lucky, cheery dude on the inside that wants to wear all the vibrant greens and oranges and all that shit. So for my costume of the year this year, Rory McIlroy dressed up as a major championship winner on the front nine at the U.S. Open this year before absolutely pissing down his leg. And obviously everybody knows what happened after that, losing to Bryson DeChambeau. He is yet to win a major in the last decade. Now we're coming up on 11 years here. And I think there for a minute, Rory felt like, it was going back to the clown reference. It was that gif of Rory just fading into a clown face where, you put the big shoes on, you put the afro on, the big red nose. Cause Rory did turn into a pumpkin that afternoon at Pinehurst number 2. And you just kind of feel for the dude, but at the same time, I don't have that much sympathy. You got to make your 3-footers, man.
Yep, 3-footers will make you millions of dollars and have you be a major champion again. Last superlative is the Ghost, who will reappear in 2025. I have a couple different levels of Ghost here. Rickie Fowler, he was 101st on the money list this past year. I feel like he's going to have a bounce back year. And it's bouncing back to like 2014, 2015. It's been a while since he's been a contender, but just seeing him contend at the Zozo, playing in those kind of events, playing more fall series, I think Rickie Fowler is going to get back to not necessarily a guaranteed Ryder Cup guy level again, but I think he's going to be a fringe Ryder Cup guy, a fringe, like maybe top 20 player on the PGA Tour going into 2025. And so he was 101st on the money list, like I said. Just take a quick guess. He had 1 top 10 and 5 top 25s this year. Take a quick guess at who's number 100 even on the PGA Tour money lists.
Of all time or just last year?
Last year.
Jesus, that is such an open-ended question. I have no idea. Mark
Tyrrell
Hubbard?
Tyrrell Hatton, who doesn't play on the PGA Tour.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I just thought that was an interesting little tidbit. Like Rickie's out there grinding, and Tyrrell Hatton's like playing in majors and making more money than he did. And then my next guy, who this is now the Zozo being done, is now a year since he's won anything, and only won the Zozo last year since 2021. I believe Colin Morikawa is going to be back in 2025 and at least win a fucking event. I feel like the guy's too good to not win an event. He's just too good to go through a whole PGA Tour season without winning, to me.
No, I agree. And while we're at it, we don't have the image, but do you remember that Colin Morikawa image that I sent you?
Yes.
Well, I don't even know if we can discuss it or not, but just the funniest shit you'll see online. Looked like he's got one prairie dog in his pants. No wonder he can't win if he's got to just take a dump the entire time he's out there playing. But I don't hate your picks necessarily. I don't think Colin Morikawa, I've said it. I don't think he's gonna win a major again, which isn't that hot of a take, but I like where you went with that. I'm gonna go in spirit of you picking multiple players. I'm gonna pick multiple players. I think it's gonna be like a zombie apocalypse where the Live PGA Tour merger is gonna get done, and all these Live players are gonna be back in our face next year. Brooks Koepka, Patrick Reed, Tyrrell Hatton, Dustin Johnson, they're all going to come up from the dirt and come take all this fucking money that all the PGA Tour players have been making all year, just living the sweet life with no competition. So
I like that one. That's an interesting take on it. All right, before we get out of here, we have to give you our Mulligan Monday. I'll run through mine real quick. So Mulligan Monday, I was playing St. Andrews on the sim last week in the league. Had a rough first couple holes with the pot bunkers, but I actually went to hit a flop shot, and I was like, I think in order to get out of this pot bunker, I have to hit a flop shot that's going to hit the roof. And so I like set up, I hit it. It hits barely the end of the roof, hits the screen, and came back and hit me right in the dick. It hurt so bad, dude. I was like, I can't believe it. I just literally took a dick shot, and it wasn't great.
That's like the version of the desk pop. Remember in the movie where you just fucking something hits the roof and everyone's like, oh shit, everyone's looking around. Yeah, usually you're mishitting it on a simulator if you're hitting the roof, but I guess you had to do it. So what was the result like? Did it end up okay?
No, it hit the lip of the bunker and went back into it. So then I had to turn it all the way around and hit it out backwards.
So what do you face away from? No, never mind. I know you just turn it on the computer. Imagine like I gotta go backwards out of this bar. You just rip one into the fucking bar behind you. That would be all time good. We should make a video of that. My Mulligan Monday is I took your advice and tried that hot bourbon chicken from Panda Express. What is it called?
Yeah, I think it's blazing hot bourbon chicken.
I just knew it was the bourbon chicken. You didn't add blazing hot, and then there's like kung pao peppers in it. Holy shit, my mouth was on fire, dude. You should have added that. I didn't know you messed with spicy shit like that.
I just love the bourbon taste, but I don't think I'm going back to Panda for a while. My stomach's still a little bit in knots, and I had a rough Wednesday last week, so I think that'll be my last Panda for a hot minute.
I was going to add that to my list. I mean, Panda in general just tears up my stomach, but let's just say I've been on like somewhat of a fasting Monday where I'm just trying not to eat anything in hopes that my stomach sorts itself out. So
there you go. Well, good luck with that. We are going to wrap it up for this Monday. We will talk to you guys next Monday. Follow us on all the socials at Big Drive Energy Golf and Big Drive Energy on TikTok. We'll be back next Monday with another episode of BDE. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.